I love this theme song. Did I mention that I wrote it? Will Work for Patients, a Chiro Marketing podcast. Here we are, and we're back again. I'm Frank Sardella, and I'm so happy to be here with you again today in our podcast show. This show is free for you to not only give you marketing help in your practice, but to keep you on purpose, keep you pumped up, and keep you going and on track. And that's my commitment in a grassroots effort to make a chiropractic world. So, welcome. We have quite an episode planned here for you today, quite an episode. But first, please let me thank everyone for the very first episode in helping make this a success right out of the gate. Very pleased with the feedback that I got. I shared this. A lot of you listened to it, gave me some very not only positive feedback, but gave me suggestions and things that you would like to hear. The list is growing, so we are going to definitely not have any underabundance of episodes that we can provide for you. All going to be great, helpful stuff. We've already lined up some guests that we're going to have, and we're just going to have a blast doing this. So again, thank you everybody for participating in that, for listening to our pilot episode and making it a success. You can see we've already grown. Our podcast now has a name, Will Work for Patients. I think that is very appropriate. And we even have a theme song, so I'm very excited about that. Now, in today's episode, it sounds weird to say, but we're going to talk about how to stop doing screenings. Now, I want you to get this. I'm not saying not to do screenings. I'm saying how to stop doing them, and that implies that you have to start doing them in the first place to be able to stop doing them. And I'll get into a little bit later on why that is and why it's such a funny title. It's not as ironic as it sounds. But I wanted to grab your attention, and if you're listening now, then it appears that I've grabbed it enough to get you to tune in, and my drive today is to keep you interested in this episode. I recommend you listen all the way to the end. I'm going to do a full 30 minutes on this, but I guarantee you will get something out of it that you can immediately apply and that you can immediately use to help your practice, give you a boost. I'm going to really dig into the arsenal and give you some really good morsels of information here today. My goal and objective here isn't to change your mind, but it's to give you a whole new outlook, a practical outlook, something that's going to change the dynamic of your practice marketing. And I'm going to go in on the screening subject here to do that. Okay? But right now I'm going to show you what lies behind your entire marketing process, whether you do screenings or not. Okay, I'm going to very specifically define for you what qualification means, what it means to qualify somebody, and to show you how it might be missing from your marketing right now. And then I'm going to tell you how to fix it. And I'm going to tell you some interesting stuff about complaints I get from chiropractors in their experience. I have a few lists. I like top 5 lists and top 10 lists and things like that. So I'm going to give you, for instance, the top 10 reasons to do a screening. I'm going to give you the top 5 complaints about screenings from chiropractors that I hear. I've spoken to hundreds of doctors, and I have a lot of feedback to share with you, or whatever. But a couple of things that we're also going to cover. Where is all this leading? Well, it's going to lead to answer some questions. Most of you have questions that you don't even know about, but they're sitting there in your mind with a question mark on them. And these are burning questions that we all have, and I'm going to show you not only the question, but we're going to talk a little bit about getting you in the direction of the answer to those questions. Okay? But we're going to show you the connection that you can make with people from your practice, and what I want to show you is, in relation specifically to the person that you're talking to or that you're advertising to, specifically how to relate to them, how to inspire action in them, and whatever. And to do that, we need to show you things like what lights them up and what turns them off. What makes them make an appointment and what makes them refuse one. And when they do make the appointment, what makes them keep it and what makes them blow it off. Perhaps the most frustrating thing and biggest complaint I get from doctors, especially the ones who call me and say, help, our screening process is a disaster. And you'd be surprised how many of them, more than the ones that say we don't get anything out of our screenings, are the guys that say, my staff go out there and they spend hours and hours and hours doing screenings. They make appointments and no one ever shows up. So we're going to show you that, and I guarantee that you can apply this to other areas to rehabilitate them, such as telemarketing, such as social media, such as print advertising, so on and so forth. I'm going to make sure that, yes, that we cover all about that. Okay, so that answers, if you were thinking, what is this guy talking about, stop doing screenings, now you have your answers. So let's get into some cool stuff. How about a top 5 list? The top 5 list that I want to do with you right now is, why don't docs want to do screenings? Okay? What are the common reasons why you guys aren't doing them or avoiding doing them or are doing them begrudgingly? Okay? And here we go. The number one on the list right now is, or maybe we should say number 5. I don't know how to do a top 5 list, but here's the first one. They hate doing them. You hate doing them. Okay? There's different derivatives of this. You don't want to take up your free time. They're kind of a pain to do. You got to lug stuff around, whatever. I get burnt out. I get tired. People just don't understand. There are many things that go under this category, but the bottom line is you hate doing them. You don't like them. The next one would be that they're degrading. This is one of the most popular things I hear from a chiropractor. I don't do screenings because I feel degraded when I do them. Or I do screenings and I feel degraded. Please help me, I feel degraded when I go out and do a screening. So can certainly understand that. There are a lot of reasons why that happens, but I'm going to show you something about them today that will make them not feel so degrading if you fit into that category. The third one is that you're just tired of doing them. You've been doing them so long, you do so many of them, you got other things you could be doing, and you're burnt out. And this is one that I can relate to because I got tired of doing them, and there are reasons why that happens. And that's one of the reasons why we moved from delivering screenings over to teaching people how to deliver screenings, because there are specific reasons for this burnout, and we actually show our clients how not to get burned out by doing them and what have you. But that's one of the reasons that we get tired of doing them. You're not good at them. You have a low closing rate. You just don't get anybody when you get a screening. They don't seem to be making any difference in your practice. It's just getting you to keep your head above water, or you just plain suck at them, for lack of a better term. This is the fourth reason. And then the fifth reason here, and one of the things I hear quite often, is you don't need to do them. You have a referral-based practice, and you have other sources of patients, so you don't need to do screenings. And I have news for you. Not only do you need to do screenings, however, you also already are employing the screening process in the other advertising you're doing, if only through your patients who are referring to you. And I'm going to show you today how screenings are a referral-based process and not like any other type of marketing that you do in your practice. Now, here's another interesting list. This should be a top 5, but I probably only have about 3 or 4 things to say about this. Why some doctors can't stop doing the screenings. This is another point. If you're already doing them, whether you like doing them or not, these are reasons why you can't seem to stop doing them. Now, I don't mean you want your practice to stop doing them. I mean you specifically want to get out of doing them, and you want someone else to do it. Okay? So, and the first, and this is the number one reason, I probably should put it last on the list, but you want someone else to do it, but no one else can do it like you can. Okay? And you're now talking about the exact reason why I got into doing what I'm doing. It's because of that need. And that's the need that I've attempted to fill, and that I've filled for doctors in doing that, because I can teach doctors how to screen like they can. Regardless, that is your number one complaint, perhaps, about not being able to stop doing screenings. You want someone else to do it, but you can't seem to get anyone to do it like you do. Derivatives of that would be, another one would be like, I can't trust someone else to do it. It's hard to trust staff out there. They goof off. They don't get good results. They're not focused, whatever. You can't trust somebody to do it. And while we're talking about staff, another reason would be there's too many problems with staff turnover. And let's not get into that. That's the subject of probably a 2 or 3 part series podcast on staff turnover. Don't get me started on that. And then lastly, maybe you don't want to pay for it. You don't know how to bonus it. You feel like you're paying too much money out to get one new patient, and there are all kinds of reasons for that. But the bottom line is you just don't want to pay. So these are some reasons why you can't stop yourself from going out there and doing the screenings, why you can't get out of it. Now, what are screenings? Here's something very interesting. There is something I want to talk about the screening process. We use this screening word and we throw it around all the time in chiropractic. And what does it really mean? We actually have, in our coaching materials, we have 3 dictionary definitions we go over, and then 4 glossary definitions from our personal glossary for our coaching materials. And our first definition of it really, really super defines it. And that's something that I'm going to want to go over with you. But the first thing I want to do is really sort of go over what the screening context is supposed to do. Because it should give you something interesting to look at. And this is probably the first thing that will shift your paradigm or change your whole point of view on this area, and not just change your point of view, but make it into something that you can actually get results with, like now, something you can take away from today's podcast. So this is something you probably want to write down and make a note of, and I will summarize it for you. But the bottom line is take a look at what a screening is and what it's supposed to do. Let's step outside of chiropractic, because we borrowed this screening idea in chiropractic from somewhere else. And let's step out into the public and say you happen to be out at Target one day and there's a nurse sitting there who's volunteering for the American Heart Association and she's doing free blood pressure screenings. Or you go into Walgreens or wherever, okay, and somebody's doing free blood pressure for you. So you sit down, she straps the what do you call it, the blood pressure cuff around you, she pumps it up, she gives you a test, and then you've also filled out a little form that tells a little bit about your history, who you are, because the American Heart Association wants that survey data. It's very similar to the process you're doing. You can see you've borrowed it. But here's the key thing that happens where chiropractors deviate. You guys are turning it into sales, and the screening process has to do with raising awareness. And it has to do with raising awareness and also making recommendations. And recommendations are a referral process. So that's the one thing that you really need to understand about this, and how it's sort of gotten out of hand with screenings. We handle them a much different way than traditionally chiropractors have been handling screenings, and this is also the source of a lot of these top 5s and top 4s reasons why you don't want to do the screenings and why you can't get out of doing the screenings. And we'll get into that more later. But so what happens is that, let's say now she gets a high blood pressure reading on you. Does she diagnose you with high blood pressure? No. Does she tell you you have high blood pressure? No. She tells you 2 things. Number 1, that she's done a check of your blood pressure, and number 2, what the reading was. She's not able to make any conclusions or whatever, nor should she, because she's not the specialist. She is just the sort of expert diagnostician there, so to speak, who's not giving a diagnosis, but who's sort of screening for symptoms, okay? And this is what we're looking at. So then what does she do at that point? She asks you some questions about your health. Do you have a history of this? Are you taking medications? She'll ask you various questions about your health, and then based on that, she will make a recommendation. Look, you have a high reading here. I recommend you follow up with your physician. You follow up with your cardiologist. Does she at that point say, I would like you to offer you, we have a free offer on consultations and 20% off of heart surgery? That's a little bit ridiculous, right? She doesn't do that. What she does is she refers you to the next step. And that's all the screening process is supposed to accomplish. And it's gotten so muddied up with methodologies and sales and all kinds of stuff. And I'm just here to tell you for the first time, this will make you happy. You're not doing sales when you go out to do the screening. Let me give you our glossary definition. We have 4 definitions of screening in here, but I have a really intense one. That's our definition number 1 that we operate off of. And I'm just going to read this to you pretty rapid fire. But our definition says screening. It's a noun. A process of surveying and evaluating an individual in such a way as to detect distinct warning signs or symptoms of specific non-optimum physical conditions. Okay, that's part 1. The results of which action are, and I give you 6 things. So the results of what I just said are as follows. Detection and intervention early enough, such that recommended treatment can be most effective. Referral of detected cases to appropriate practitioners for actual diagnosis and treatment. Raised awareness in the individual for future detection of warning signs. Enlightenment on prevention. Enlightenment on treatment options. Ultimately bettered health conditions for individuals and communities. Now that's when you take the screening process as the beginning and have it end with treatment. Now in our coaching, and we're not going to get into this in this forum, but in our coaching we show you where the line is. There's a line in that definition that gets crossed. Before that line is the screening process, and after would be a process that's only to be carried out in the office. And that's a very important distinction to make, and it's something you should find out about, because you're probably violating it. We find most doctors do. In fact, we have a coin